Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I've been meaning to do this video for a very long time. It's on how to assemble your own gaming PC, and it's going to be around Intel chipsets, and I'll be using an NVIDIA graphics card. As we go along, I'll try and suggest other components for cheaper or more expensive builds, but that's the components I'll be using today. If you'd like to build one yourself, stay tuned and I'll show you how. So step one is choosing your case. I've chosen a mid-tower. It's basically probably best of both worlds. It's compact case, but you can still fit your full-sized motherboards in it. I didn't really want a full tower because it's quite big, to be honest, and I don't fancy that. Another thing I'll look at is when I choose my cases is that there's no drive cutout. I hate that. And to make sure there's enough perforation for your air when you put your fans in. Otherwise, poor air intake will lead to overheating. So I've chosen a ZALMAN T7 mid-tower. The other options I was looking at Antec NX100, also similar to this. I believe it's mid-tower, around the same price, about 30 quid. Calling Tranquility and Calling Stronghold were also pretty good, a little bit more pricey, 40 to 45 pounds. A little bit more features and the build quality is a little bit better, but overall I've decided to go for this. If I was going for ITX or mATX build, I looked at Cougar MG130. I thought brilliant case, but since I'm going for the full-size build, I've decided to go for this. When it comes to cases, the choice is massive and it depends what you like, so I can only suggest what I've liked. Feel free to comment and I'll try and help you out and suggest something else. So that's the case. Once you chose your case, you need a motherboard. If you chose an ITX case, obviously you cannot put full-size motherboard in it. It will just physically not fit. This case will accommodate all types of motherboards. I've decided to go for Z310 UD. It has a lot of features, plus if you put your memory in it and your CPU is i3 or i5, you are still able to utilize the full speeds of the memory. Whereas if you're using H or B, for example, then you'll only be bound by your CPU. i3 is 2400 bound, so it will be running at 2400 instead of 3000, and then i5 is 26,666 basically. And again, you'll be running at that and not your 3000. Not a deal breaker, but it's best to maximize the ability of your build. The CPU, I'm not going to be using i3 unfortunately. It's a brilliant little computer, chip for a computer rather. I'll be suggesting it for the budget build. If you not using the Z series, I'll suggest H series, H310 M, HDV, I believe, by ASRock. That's for your ITX build. And for your mATX build, Gigabyte does H310 S2H, revision 2, I believe. Brilliant board. It has M.2 as well, so you can use your NVMe drives. But the CPU I'm using is 8400, sorry, 8 series i5, 6 cores, 6 threads, pretty good once you combine all your hardware together. Storage wise, I'm going to be using NVMe M.2. Great little storage device, very fast, especially if you're using a Z series. You'll be able to utilize Gen 3 or Gen 4 PCIe slots. You'll be running at ×4, but the one I've suggested earlier, it runs at ×2, still great. For budget motherboard, so for the power supply, I've chosen a Seasonic X series, 850 watt, 80 plus gold rated. If you want a budget, I'd suggest EVGA Bronze series, I think is B, around 40 quid, 500 or 600 watt. It all depends. If you want premium quality, you're going to be paying a little bit more. Also, Corsair has a CV series, I believe, also pretty good. Obviously, they're not going to be a modular or hybrid modular. They're going to be fully wired. This is full modular, which is pretty good. Once you've chosen that, the cooler, I'm going to be using NHD15S. Has great RAM clearance, unlike the NHD15 where you might get some problems. Also, I've got H80i version 2, all-in-one hydro cooler. I wanted to use it simply because the graphics card right there is a hybrid and it uses H55. But see what happens. For now, I'm going to stick to this. If you on a budget, even if you can't afford a CPU cooler, i3 or majority of the CPUs, they come with a stock cooler. If you're not going to be overclocking, it should be alright. If you want something better, I suggest Arctic Freezer 34 Esports Duo. Amazing little cooler. Cost around 30 quid, I believe, but for the money, it's probably the best around. Graphics card is going to be GTX 1070, and this is a Hydro series, Seahawk X, I believe. Has 8 GB of DDR5, great little card. I've sort of compared it to 1660 Ti. Obviously, it has 6 GB of DDR6. 2 less, but you probably won't notice the difference, and 1660 might be slightly faster in some instances, but I'd consider them similar cards. This is a hydro cooler basically, so you have a stock shroud with a little fan, and Corsair worked with MSI on this one, and they actually built in all-in-one H55 cooler in it. So brilliant, low temperatures, it's just great. So once you have all this sorted, all your components, it's time for a build. Let's move on. Alright guys, so to make things easier, you have to remove the side panels. In my case, it was just this bit here, and this side window right here. It's acrylic, out of plastic, nothing special, but for the money, for the price, you can't really expect anything else. There's no filter on the front, just the mesh. You can probably do some DIY one or magnetic one. I'll come back to that later. Not really concerned with this now. Right, the stock fans that came with it, one was a 3-pin, and the other one was a Molex. I decided to remove both of them. I had some Bitfinex ones, and I've just placed them here. I'm going to be using them with a splitter, and they're going to be my intake fans. Right, moving on. For all your wires, to look nice, you have to start rearranging it basically. Because my power supply is modular, I've taken the cable for the CPU power, and I've routed it straight away to make things easier on the long run. And then you just install your motherboard, your CPU and your memory, and then on to the next step. Right, another thing I wanted to mention is cable management. I personally do it all the time. It just makes the case look a lot neater, plus, well, it might improve airflow. Well, technically it should, and yeah, it's a lot easier to clean up the dust and stuff. So this case, well, it's pretty easy to do. In this case, loads of options where you can, you know, tie the cables, This side won't be seen, it will be covered by a panel, so it doesn't really matter. As long as the other side is nice and clean, nice and neat. Obviously having a modular power supply helps, but it can be done with a regular power supply. You can just hide all the cables in there. That's how this side looks. I routed the CPU cable, and that's the rest of the cables. And all you can see here is sort of barely anything happening here. Some cables plugged in there, a couple of coming out here, and that's where the GPU is going to sit. And this cable is going to be coming out right there, so it's going to be barely seen. And that's kind of it. And there we go, assembling the rest of the hardware. As you might have noticed, I've swapped the RAM sticks for the black ones, simply for the aesthetics. It looks a little bit better. And I've decided to scrap the Noctua cooling and to go with the H80i V2, also an all-in-one hydro cooler from the Corsair, to sort of match this one right here, H55 on the graphics card, MSI Seahawk. And yeah, that's kind of it. So I've installed the CPU cooler, I've installed the graphics card along with the graphics cooler, and one of the fans, it was a bit of a tight fit, to be honest. One of the fans of the BitFenix had to scrap for the one that came with the graphics card cooler, and it just looks a little bit different as an LED fan in the middle now, but still does the job. I've decided to go with a single fan on the CPU cooler, simply because it's not going to run too hot. I'm not going to be overclocking it, because that particular CPU cannot be overclocked. And I have deleted it, and I've applied liquid metal, so it will run pretty cool. I've already tested it, trying it out on the Call of Duty Warzone, playing for about an hour or two. Graphic card doesn't get above 40 degrees Celsius, which is amazing. That's overclocked as well. I've managed to get an overclock plus 150 on core and plus 700 on memory, which is pretty good, and it still runs that cool. Amazing. And the CPU was 45, the highest as well. And yes, it all looks nice and neat, and I'm quite happy with the build. Hope you will achieve something similar. If you've got different hardware, you can always give me a shout and I'll try and help you out. But if you've liked this video, support the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it in general with your friends, I suppose. And thanks for watching. All the best.